Good morning, everybody. Hope you're all doing well, having a great new year. I know, a lot of us back to work after the long holiday. Hope everybody had a good, safe holiday with friends and family. Getting back to the grind here. Just coming off of some not instant reactions, but after a day to digest what happened with the Ravens, and quite frankly, this person right here is not surprised. I mean, we've seen this team pee down their legs multiple times. You know, the arrogance and confidence and acting like Pittsburgh had no chance, no shot by our fan base. Not sure when you guys are going to learn, but this team comes up small in every situation like this. So I wasn't surprised. I took the Steelers money line, took them plus the 3.5. Certainly wanted the Ravens to win. I knew better. This time it was a Tyler Wiggins field goal after what was an amazing fourth quarter with just, haymakers thrown by both Lamar and Rodgers, and just an insane, great fourth quarter of a football game. I mean, that's kind of, outside the outcome of the game, what you want to see from some of these games. I mean, you saw Bucks Panthers and nowhere near that, and Niners Seahawks and kind of nowhere near that drama. So NFL got what they wanted in a great, great game. We didn't really get what we wanted here in Baltimore. And, contrary to what you guys were saying, teams weren't, tanking to not get the fifth seed because they were worried they weren't going to play the Ravens. Please stop with that. Have some humility. This team comes up short in big situations, and they once again did that. Okay? So I'll leave it at that. But, going forward, and, my man Selly, who was on last time, did a great breakdown, with myself about what this team is going to kind of be doing going forward. And we had discussed this, and, the immediate knee-jerk reaction from everyone is, Harbaugh has to go, right? And while I don't think it's necessarily going to fix things, I'm fine if he goes, right? I'm fine if he goes. I'm fine if Orr goes. I don't think Monken should go, but inevitably I think a change is going to be made. I personally think Harbaugh's coming back. I think one or both of the coordinators will go, but I just want people to kind of realize the situation that the Ravens are in. Like, every year we hear, oh, we'll be back next year. We'll be back next year, right? From 2019 on, we've heard we'll be back next year, and they have been, right? But they haven't progressed any further towards their ultimate goal. You've won one playoff game, no more than one playoff game a year, right? So you did that 2 years ago when you beat Houston to go to the AFC Championship and lost in the AFC Championship in gut-wrenching fashion. You did it last year, and then you lost to Buffalo. This year you took a step back. So you can't just assume you'll be back next year and have things go with the status quo. You just can't. Proof is in there. Dan Campbell, whatever you think of him, said the best 2 years ago when the Lions blew an 18-point lead to the 49ers in the AFC Championship. We don't know if we'll ever be back. Guess what? They were the 1 seed last year, lost at home, didn't make the playoffs this year. You see it in the NFL all the time, right? You can't just assume you'll be back. And people have ignored some of the things with this team over the last 2 years. And just, we'll run it back, we'll figure it out. Here's the situation with this team, right? Okay, let's say you bring in a new head coach, new coordinators, that's all well and good, right? That person needs a roster to manage and to coach and to call plays for. And, we mentioned Lamar's cap hit, $74.5 million. Like, do you think he's going to restructure? Okay. Or, sign the extension. I'm not a cap expert. I don't know how much money that opens up, how much that frees. Either way, he has to get the $74 million. I mean, they're not just, not giving it to him. So it's going to be allocated in some parts of the contract, whether it's on the back end or, whatever you deal as. So eventually you're going to be cap strong because you have to pay him that this year and next year. Like, it was already agreed to, signed, he has to get, I'm fairly certain with that. So what do? Okay. You have holes that everyone will tell you at multiple offensive line positions, both guard positions, and then center if you don't bring back Linderbaum. You also want, multiple pass rushers. You're probably going to get rid of Marlon Humphrey or move him to safety, right? Okay, so then you need some cornerbacks. So how are you getting all these pieces here? Like, I did see something today with Maurice Jones-Drew, I forget what show he's on. It's like First Things First or something like that on Fox, and basically just saying, hey, the Ravens can just run it back. They had injuries, right? Like injuries happen. Okay, they do. First off, that goes back to the previous point. You can't just assume that you'll be back. They were very, very healthy last year, very, very healthy the year before that. Weren't so much this year. That stuff happens in the NFL. But the concerning part with it that's not going to change is the depth. So, you're a couple injuries away from having basically nobody in there. You saw what this team looked like when they had injuries. And it's the NFL. People get hurt. So not only do you need to fill these positions for starters, you need to fill them for backups. How are you going to do that? Free agency? Okay. Well, there's obviously, we know there's three ways. There's a trade, free agency, draft, right? We all know what the draft is. Nothing crazy. I don't know how many picks they have. I think 8 to 10. But cheapest way to obviously build your team because they're under contract. But there's also no guarantee that they're going to be good. We've seen guys like Ajabo, Owe, Falele, Voorhees. They've all been drafted. They're all guys that got rid of or you wanted us to get rid of or we're not going to bring back. They were all drafted. So you can't just say build through the draft because these guys were drafted. Rashad Bateman drafted. These aren't guys that you went out and brought in. Okay. Like they're not. Okay. So under contract next year, you don't have a ton of proven talent or you have talent that has underperformed to their contract. So let's say you get rid of those guys, right? Whatever you need to do, you're going to have to bring Roquan back. You're going to have to move Marlowe to safety. You can't get their contracts off the books. So, okay, so we talked about the draft route. So draft obviously is the best way to go, but you better hit a home run on all those picks, right? And, if you want to acquire more picks, that's great. Who are the two players that are going to get you the most picks? Kyle Hamilton, Lamar Jackson, right? You're not going to trade either one of those because you already talked about those, right? So you're basically stuck with draft picks unless they have the qualifying offer and, you lose a free agent and you get a third to fifth round pick or whatever it is for that. I think that will happen if someone gets Linderbaum or whatever. Okay, so that adds one to maybe two more picks. All right, well, you better hit home runs with these. You can't be missing with guys. Oh, Tyler Loop, also drafted. Okay. Trenton Simpson drafted. You all told us he was the second coming. These guys were all drafted. Now these guys all suck, right? So we haven't hit them the draft picks like you think. So second way to build your team is through trades, right? Obviously, trades, you can get people under contract. You don't have to worry about going out and spending free agent money. You can go out and either acquire more draft picks or a player for either picks or a player. Okay. I'm not trading Rashad Bateman and 2 picks for Max Crosby. There's no way in hell that the Raiders would do that. So please stop with all those. You're not going to be able to trade Roquan. You're not going to be able to trade Marlon Humphrey. You're not going to be able to trade Bateman for anything of significance that's going to help your team besides maybe more than a depth person. Okay? So trades out the window. There's one person that the Ravens can trade that will not only garner them multiple picks of the first round variety, probably first and second rounds as well, and a impact player in return, and that player is Lamar Jackson. You trade Lamar, you can immediately get an offensive lineman or pass rusher and additional picks. So right there, you're addressing one of your biggest needs. But you're not going to trade him, right? We all suggested that, and you all say, hey, it's out of their own possibility. So let's say there's no way in hell that this team can trade Lamar Jackson. Okay. You're going to trade Kyle Hamilton. How many people value safeties? What are you going to get for him? He's your second best piece you're going to get. Okay. So what are you going to get for him? Maybe a pick, maybe a second rounder. What are you going to get for Zay Flowers if you try to trade him? But those are your other 2 best players besides Derrick Henry, and no one's going to take Derrick Henry. So the only trade chip that you have is Lamar Jackson. So you all said don't trade him. I say it needs to be explored for reasons I said. What if you trade Lamar for Max Crosby? Lamar and the Ravens' first-round pick for Max Crosby and the number 1 pick, or Max Crosby, the Raiders' first round this year and next year. So you automatically get pass rush help. You get 2 first-round picks that will help your team this year and next year. Why wouldn't you do that? Why? The other option is to try to bring people in through free agency. And we talked about the cap hits. I'm not a cap expert. I think I was mistaken when I said how little money they have. I do think they have a little bit more. Obviously, Lamar extends or restructures. That adds more. Matabuki's money comes off the books. That adds more, right? This team isn't going to be going out and spending a ton, even if all that stuff happens. So these days and the notion of everybody thinking, oh, everybody wants to be a Raven. Let's come and play for the Ravens. All they want to do is win. They'll take a hometown discount, or they'll take a discount to come win and come play with Lamar. They ain't doing that. You want George Pickens? Great. So do probably about 20 other teams. You're going to have to outbid for him, okay? You want to name a pass rusher. Guess what? He ain't just going to come to the Ravens and say, hey, sign me for whatever. You're going to have to outbid teams for him. Same thing for all the positions you need. You want the best guard? You're going to have to go out and bid for him, right? You're going to have to outbid teams for those people. When do the Ravens do that? The last free agent, Derrick Henry signed here, but I believe he maybe only had one other offer, and it was from the Cowboys, and it wasn't anywhere near what the Ravens offered. Okay, they got Odell Beckham Jr., who turned around and went to the Jets and said, match my offer, and I'll go there. So he didn't want to come here, but he got paid the most, and they overpaid for him. So you see what happens when you kind of overpay for guys, right? Like OBJ sucked, right? But the Ravens kind of reached for him. So do you want to reach for some free agents too and try to overpay for guys that might be a little bit past their prime or might be in need? Okay. Then you're going to get what you're going to get there. So if you want to go out and get the guys in their prime, the guys that are going to be here 3, 4, 5 years, that could be foundation pieces or pieces that will help your team, that's great. Go out and outbid teams for them. But then you also need to fill that in with depth. You're going to have to fill that in with depth through the draft and obviously through free agency. So it's a conundrum. Like everyone just says, oh, they'll figure it out. But I'm asking you, for those of you who call me out on Twitter for these and say it's unfathomable that they would trade Lamar Jackson or that they should. And again, I'm not saying that they definitely should, but I just laid out, if you trade him, how much that helps the team there. You saw Malik Willis drop a 30-burger on the Ravens. Looked amazing. You mean you wouldn't take a upgraded offensive line, upgraded pass rush, and maybe another wide receiver with the money that you're going to save and a quarterback like Malik Willis behind it? All those other pieces help your team get to the Super Bowl and get over the hump. If you don't do that, then you have Lamar and guys. And yeah, you might be able to address one of the situations, but you're not addressing all of your offensive line. You're not addressing all of your defensive line, your pass rush, your cornerback, and getting Zay Flowers help. You're just not doing that. Like even if Lamar signs the extension, you're not going to be able to do that. So how are you going to augment the roster? How are you going to help the team? Like, you better get used to Lamar having to play hero ball, as you call it, or be Superman, because no one else is going to be around. And then is that what you want? You bring in a new head coach, you have Lamar and a bunch of guys, and you're coming up short again. If that's what you want to keep Lamar, that's totally fine. And yeah, he'll win you a couple games, but what if he doesn't? You're just sitting there wasting it because you can't trade Lamar. Oh my God, we can't. So you're going to be behind the 8 ball here. Like Tom Brady played for a new team. Peyton Manning played for a new team. Ask the Steelers if they hung on to Ben Roethlisberger too long. Steelers fans, they'll all tell you that they did, right? And it cost their team. They've been in purgatory. They were going 9-8. They were barely making the playoffs. They were kind of a fringe team because they waited too long and hung on to Ben Roethlisberger. Brett Favre played for a new team. It happens. Like, you don't want to be the franchise that waits too long and then eventually you're kind of sitting there toiling in anonymity while you have a quarterback on an aging deal who's aging, who's getting older. Derrick Henry will be getting older, all that type of stuff. Like, the window was 2 years ago or this year. They didn't get done this year, so you can't just run it back. Regardless of, like, getting a new coach, you can't run it back. And I just want people to sit there and realize, like, it's good business to consider the trade. EDC, Bisciotti, they have to consider it. It helps your team fill multiple other areas of need. Offensive line, it'll help you upgrade that immensely. It'll help you upgrade the pass rusher because you'll open it up. You'll probably get a player back in return. Let's say you I'm just naming someone. Let's say you trade him to get Daniel Hunter, right? Like they're obviously not going to be one from Shell, but that's a player that you could get for Lamar and another draft pick. You don't think that would help the team immensely? You're now being able to build through the draft more by trying to acquire more pieces, which gives you a better chance to hit. And one of those pieces that you're going to have to try to get in free agency and a pick, you already got from trading somebody. So when people say you got to consider trading Lamar, or at least think about it, don't dismiss it. Don't just say they're idiots, they're haters. It makes the most sense for the business. Lamar's a damn good player. I'm not blaming him for the Steelers' loss at all. But here we are 8 or 9 years into his career. He's been an MVP twice. They have this many playoff wins to show for it. 3. None where they had multiple playoff wins in the year. None. Last year you saw Jaden Daniels in Washington win 2 games in the playoff year. The Ravens haven't done that under Lamar's career. You could say it's Harbaugh's fault. You could say it's Zay Flowers' fault. You could say it's whoever. Lamar's contributed to that. But at the same time, are you just supposed to sit there and cross your fingers and hope that nobody gets hurt, that you run it back next year, that he plays amazing, that he's not banged up at all? Oh, we got a new coach who has no experience. We're just supposed to sit there and do this and hope and hope and hope and run it back because, God forbid, we can't trade Lamar. Like, that's fine. Then no one can complain on X about lack of a pass rush, lack of offensive linemen, or, oh, this is what EDC went out and did. And for the record, I don't think EDC is a great GM, and I've said that for years, and you guys have called me a hater who doesn't know ball, and now you're starting to see it. But he's very, very limited with, and some of these were contracts that he gave out, so, no one to blame but himself. But the Ravens aren't going to turn around and go 14-3, 13-4 next year, or the year after that, with the current roster construction and the lack of funds and trade pieces and everything else, unless they hit a complete home run in the draft. And you can't tell me that they're hitting home runs in the draft because I just named a bunch of players that you will get rid of in 5 seconds on this roster. And when you're questioning if your number one wide receiver is Zay Flowers, who was a first-round draft pick, whether you're questioning if you want to pay him and it's not, his rookie deal's not even over yet, that tells me that maybe you didn't hit a home run on that pick. Like, he's been very, very good. Well, not very good, but he's been good. He looked great in the last game. He fumbles too much. He's cost his team too many games. He doesn't show up in big games. He did this game. Okay. Name another big game he showed up in, right? So that was your first round pick. So you nailed that one. Nailed it. Your other first round pick, Tyler Linderbaum, you're questioning if you're going to pay the money to sign him. So these are guys that you drafted. So the more picks that you could get, the better chances you have of getting cheaper guys and hitting on those. So why not try to do that and get another player in return? The way you get that is by trading your best asset, Lamar Jackson. I'm not saying that they should or will. It needs to be considered. It's not someone hating. It's not hating on Lamar. It's not being an asshole. It's not being not knowing ball. It's good business. It's what you do. You have so many holes on this roster. You guys all tell me on X, this player sucks, this player sucks, this player sucks, this player sucks. Proposing trades of Rashad Bateman and 2 picks for Max Crosby in a pick. The Raiders aren't going to do that. Nobody's going to take Bateman. Trades are fine. You ain't getting shit for Marlowe, Bateman, Roquan, none of those guys. So you want to make trades? Expect to get a second-tier player for Rashad Bateman. Maybe that player will be good. Maybe not. Otherwise, you're getting just a guy for just a guy. Is that going to help you? Probably not. You'll be sitting there, I can't believe we traded this guy. Oweh was just a guy. You trade him for Gilman, just a guy. Gilman has moments, but none of you want Gilman back. Okay. But you traded the first-round pick for him, right? Like Oweh. So who on this roster are you going to trade for anybody of significance? Tell me. Just please take the blinders off. Think about it. What's best for this franchise. And I think that they should. Eventually, I think they're going to keep Lamar. I don't think that they're going to rush to trade him. I don't necessarily think that they should. It needs to be on the table. If you get the right offer, if you get the best offer there, it's going to help the franchise. If you don't do it, expect a lot of 10-7s, 9-8s, kind of games where the division's on the line. It's a weaker AFC, but this is what you're going to get. Games similar to the Steelers where, you have 8 or 9 wins, you're a fringe playoff team. No one really believes that even if you win that game, you're going to go in and beat the team that you play in the playoffs, right? No one thought. So if that's what you want from this franchise, that's fine. You can't complain about the lack of other dudes on the team, lack of other stars and, skill position players, unless they hit a home run on the draft again. That's the one caveat of all of this. But they haven't been. And if they continue to not, and then you got Henry getting older, you got Lamar getting older, you're going to have to pay Flowers. Otherwise, if you don't, then you have no receivers. So it's going to snowball. It's going to spiral. So just keep that in mind when you're sitting out there and you're just, calling people out and thinking and you're not going to hear this from, Locked On Ravens or the other podcasts. They're going to be like, Lamar, and, we can't trade this. We got to just fire Harbaugh and do all that stuff. No, this stuff needs to be considered. And you have blinders on if you can't see it. And they're going to go in the offseason, run it back, add a couple Jair Alexander type guys and, outside of the mental issues. And I do hope he's okay with that. But guys that, Hopkins that you're going to tell us are great signings. And then you're going to come in, one player gets hurt and you're going to be like, who the hell's behind them? Jay Higgins, an undrafted free agent, who? But this is what you guys wanted because it's unfathomable that you could trade somebody, that you trade your quarterback. It's unfathomable. So if that's the case, get used to a team full of just, who is this guy? We don't know who that is. And it's football. People are going to get hurt. The Ravens were insanely healthy last year in their run. Still came up short. Lost in Buffalo. Pretty healthy the year before that. Lost in the AFC Championship to the Chiefs. What's going to change? Tell me. Get a new coach in? Is that going to stop Flowers from fumbling big spots? Is that going to stop Luke from missing the kick? Also, for those of you that are blaming Harbaugh for that, it's ridiculous. When you are kicking, you ideally want to have a timeout in your back pocket in case there's a formation or you have too many men on the field or whatever. You need to take a timeout and you don't to avoid a penalty. So you want to have the timeout in your pocket. You also want to kick before 4th down. Let's say you fumble the snap and fall on it. Well, then you get the ball back and you get to re-kick. It's football 101. Henry's had fumbling issues, and damn well if you handed the ball off to him and he lost 2 or 3 yards and or fumbled, you'd be crucifying Harbaugh. It's a 44-yard field goal. An NFL kicker needs to be able to hit that. And this is a guy that you drafted, that they drafted, that you told me based on a kicking camp video of him kicking in shorts off of a tee with no pass rush, that he was going to be a stud. So, and there's possibly another issue that you got to address. You got to go out and get a kicker. Where are you going to find that one, right? So there's a lot of stuff percolating here, and it's not all sunshine and roses, and we'll just be back because Lamar will be healthy next year, and Derrick Henry went for 1,500 yards again, and we should have beat this team, should have beaten this team, blah, 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 blah. You can't assume that. So drastic changes might need to be made. I think a full rebuild, starting with EDC possibly, all the way to getting rid of, Lamar. Everything needs to be on the table. Ultimately, I think Harbaugh comes back. I think Lamar comes back. And I think one or both of the coordinators get fired. But don't expect them to just go out and get Pickens. Don't expect them to go out and get Max Crosby because they can't. Who are they going to trade for him? Who are they going to outbid for those players, free agency-wise? You tell me. So it's a rock and a hard place. I think we missed our window, sadly, as Ravens fans. To see this team just come up dreadfully and woefully short again. Sadly, I knew it was coming. I knew exactly what to expect. It's what this team does. They have a bunch of soft guys that talk a good game. They're not in the locker room after the game. Props to Tyler Luke for stepping up and answering questions, because when Zay Flowers fumbled, he left the locker room and came back and was like, "Oh, my bad, guys." Okay, whatever. And I think Andrews might do the same thing too. I don't remember if Andrews did when he dropped the 2-point conversion or not. But getting a new coach isn't going to change those guys coming up short. Isn't going to change them peeing down their legs. Isn't going to change having a bad roster isn't going to change having no depth, isn't going to change any of that. Your quarterback's getting older, your running back's getting older. You're going to have to now pay Zay Flowers if you want him $28 million. Like, think about it. So I think that's why this loss hits a lot of people is, you can see that window closing. And anyone who doesn't just has the blind purple glasses on and, they'll think everything's roses and they'll be sitting there 5-5, 6-6, and maybe they go 12-5 next year. They hit a home run with draft picks. Lamar plays great. Okay, cool. What about the year after that? The year after that? The year after that? The year after that? And they showed even if they are 14-2, 14-3, the number one seed, everything going for them, they win one playoff game a year. They showed you that. So even if they overachieve with their roster next year, what's going to change? You'll probably have Josh Allen back in the playoffs. You might have Mahomes back again in the playoffs. You haven't beaten either one of those guys. Jacksonville's on the up and up. Houston's on the up and up. New England's on the up and up. Like, the Steelers just beat you twice with your season on the line. What if they bring Rodgers back, who already beat you twice? Like, what's going to change? I'm sure I'll get called a hater for this and, blah, 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 but these are real conversations that people need to think about, and it's not fun. This will be one of the most important off seasons in Baltimore Ravens history. Kind of curious to see what's going to happen, and we know Bisciotti's not one to generally make huge moves and make them quickly without them being thought out. So I don't expect anything to happen today. I do think before free agency, stuff absolutely needs to get done, and it will be surprising, but if your quarterback gets traded, do not jump off of a bridge, off of a cliff. I promise you, if you look at what they get in return and look at the pieces that they're able to now build with that, you can help the franchise stay competitive, get relevant. You draft a quarterback next year, you're fine. You'll still make the playoffs. You can win your one playoff game a year and still have the kind of same thing. If you don't trade him and he still plays at an MVP level, you saw what happened, right? He did it, and he did with better roster than he's going to have next year and the year after that. So he's going to have to play even better, and they still won one playoff game. And again, that's with Lamar having one of the best quarterback seasons of all time ever 2 years ago. A 2,000-yard rusher, 1,000-yard receiver, they won one playoff game. Washington won more than they did. So what's going to change? You tell me. You could comment on here, call me nitty, but if you do, give me a solution. What's going to happen? And don't just say they'll figure it out. And don't propose Rashad Bateman and a pick or 2 picks for Max Crosby, because that ain't happening, and that's not going to happen. So anyway, have a great day. It was baseball. Hopefully we'll save us. Maryland basketball taking years off the back end of my life, at least last year when the Ravens lost in excruciating fashion. I had a Sweet 16 possible Final Four team to look forward to, so going to watch the Maryland game on Wednesday. It ain't going to be pretty either. Trust me, that over-under win total for conference wins, I think me and Drew Forrester said at 2.5 if Pharrell Payne doesn't play the rest of the season. I'm taking the under on that one. So not fun to be a Terps fan either. So hopefully the Orioles can go out and get our boy Framber, Ranger, trade for Freddie Peralta, get a Kyle Tucker, Cody Bellinger, and you'll see me in the stands on opening day. But have a great day. If you want to have a constructive conversation about, I'm not a cap expert. I'm certainly happy to discuss other ways that they could improve this team and roster. Have a good one.